Who's that singing magic dance in the labyrinth of your mind? That's right, it's your main man coming back to you today with a video that a number of people ask, beg, and grovel to receive. And as a benevolent overlord, I shall grant your wishes. We're going to be talking about Vancian magic versus non-Vancian magic and how to bring non-Vancian magic to your wizards, to your specialist wizards in Dungeons & Dragons. We're going to be talking about Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 1st Edition. We're going to be talking about Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition. We're going to be talking about Dungeons & Dragons 3rd Edition and 3.5. Beyond that, we will also be talking, yes, about Pathfinder. For all you Paizo fans out there, we will not be talking about Dungeons & Dragons 4th Edition here, for the simple reason Dungeons & Dragons 4th Edition does not use Vancian magic, so there's nothing that is going to be taken away in that grain from this. That being said, you will take something away from this, and that is a guarantee. So, let's look at Vancian magic. Vancian magic says, I have a code locked in my mind. I have this idea, mystical patterns trapped in my mind. But that way before. What is magic in Dungeons & Dragons? Where does it come from? It comes from distilling fantasy novels. Fantasy novels come from distilled real-world occultism and real-world mythology, real-world superstitions. That's where the basis of their magic comes from. Now, of course, the writers are creative individuals and add, change, multiply. They do whatever they want to do with those ideas, but that's the root foundation. Now, the root foundation for that is theology, and the theology of world religions, not to say merely Christianity or Judeo-Christianity, depending on how you're looking at it, but with Native American tribes or the magical traditions of Africa or India or the Far East, the Middle East. It goes on and on and on. Now, so when you're looking at the real world occultism, that's where it comes from. That's where all of it comes from. So, while that makes the idea of the wizard a little odd, and we can bring some real examples to support that. That's not what the video is about, so please don't go down with list. Trust me, your main man has long since done his homework. Now, that being said, none of those traditions teach us anything that is remotely similar to Vancian magic. They don't. So, why should you use Vancian magic? It's game balancing. D4 damage, magic missile. That's so good, I killed him. It's not what you want to bring about, man. Think about it. Here's a big problem that Vancian magic has. I'm playing a wizard. I have a bunch of spells. And I have a spell like Animate Rope that I never memorize because Animate Rope is not really that useful the majority of the time. However, there's this one point in the course of the campaign, let's call it session number 9, where I could have used that Animate Rope spell and have such wonderful, great success. And it would be this visually appealing, wonderful scene. Now let's litmus test. Remember, this is always our litmus test. Look at a TV show, look at a movie, look at a book. In a TV show, movie, or book, if you are the director, if you are the writer, do you go, oh yeah, your character learned how to do this, so that'd be a great place to work it in? Or do you go, oh, well, sorry, your character has Vancian magic now. If it adds to the scene, you do it. You let them do it. You want them to do it. You want your scenes. Game Master and the players are on the same team to make the scene. You understand? And when you work together and you make that scene, you have a wonderful game. And you work those scenes over and over, and that's what the campaign is. It's the culmination of the addition. It's the culmination and the addition of all your scenes. So, you want them to work. How much fun is it to look and go, oh man, I can't do that! Well, that isn't fun. Now, you might not react juvenilely like that, but inside you're like, oh, I'm not a jack. That was a jack to me. Why would you want to jack your players? I don't want to jack my players. I mean, if I'm running a game and I've facilitated a mechanical system to allow and engineer fun, they're going to have more fun. If everything else is equal, and it ain't going to be, because your main man is going to be running that game. But as a player in your game, you're You're stopping the fun. You're air conditioning it by enforcing this mechanics that are grievously incorrect. So that creates a problem because you want the player to enjoy themselves and you want to have a better scene. If I sit here and I go, oh, well, I guess I have magic missile because I was protective and I just went with lots of magic missiles because that's what I did. The player is not going to be thinking outside the box. You want them to constantly think out of the box and you want to reward that style of play, not put it on the bench. So Vancian Magic really works against creativity in a lot of ways. Also, it's, for me, impossible to believe. I will not play a Vancian style caster in anyone's game for any reason, period. I will not do it because I can't believe in it. I know a lot of you play the game way out here, you know, in your miniatures, hex grid designed or just normal grid. I know people, oh, it's not a hex grid. I use this other kind of grid. Same thing I'm talking about, man. You understand? You're playing way out here, and then some other people are playing back here. Some other people are playing back here, but for me, I'm inside the mind. That's where I play. I think like the character. I have the character's thoughts, his likes, you know, what kind of women he likes, what kind of food he wants to eat, what his sexual libido is, up or down, you know, how much of a gentleman or how much of a lech he is, how he's feeling that day. Is his body aching? Is his arm causing him problems from all the sword blows he's swung? And I put those sort of details in to produce. That's what I plug into the computer, and a plethora more. And we bring in and say, okay, well, does he like the rain? Does he like it sunny? Does he like the forest? Does he like the mountains? You know, X, Y, and Z, and tons of stuff. So I have to be able to buy it. I do not buy Vancian Magic, and I never did. Also, Vancian Magic grinds your game. A ton of you out there have heard a player do this before. I know you have, because I have heard it from lots of players, and I've done it before. And it wasn't my fault, and it's none of these players' fault. Stop. You have to pause the game. We can't go any further. We can't leave camp. I have to get my spells in order. Now, I don't know about you, but I didn't just, when I played a character who casts spells, and I got a character all the way up to 21st / like 9th level, I think, with 2 spell casting classes. And I like to change my spells. I'd say, okay, well, we're going to go there and do that. Okay, well, I need to change this one and this one. Oh, we're going to 4th level and I got to go to 5th. Yeah, I would pay attention to what I had so that I could bring the thunder. Sometimes quite literally. And that takes time. And it grinds. It wasn't fun for me to do that as fast as I could. It wasn't fun for the other people to sit there and wait for me. It wasn't fun for the game master to sit there and not really get to do anything. They have to give me that time. Because it's in the rules. I get to do, you know, I get to put my spells together. And he's already done that. He was able to do it in character. So I have to have them because I can't come to whatever encounter we have and then go, oh, well, yeah, but I need to have Lightning Bolt now. But what if I was going to put Lightning Bolt down? All right, so it jacks me. It creates a problem, and it grinds. Anything that's a grind, any grinder you have in your game, get rid of it, man. Those things are horrible. You want it to flow. You know, don't put a dam up. Let the water run. That water is creativity. It's beauty. That's what you want to have in the game, not a dam. That's not going to get you anywhere. Really think about that, man, because you want to bring the game and make it fun. As a player doing stuff, getting there, not going, oh, well, I have to spell, you know. A high-level caster, I mean, you could take 4 minutes, and then the next day 4 minutes, and the next day 4 minutes. And in that game session, you might cost your players 20 minutes of just grind. Okay, so that's not a good thing. It's a grind. It grinds the game master. It grinds you more than anyone, and it grinds them. So it makes spellcasters less fun to play. Why on earth would you want to do that? Me, I always make the players, you're playing a wizard in my game, or if I'm going to play a wizard in your game or whatever, I'll take a book, a notebook, I'll get a new one, usually. I don't write out the spell, verbal component. I'll write what the verbal component is, what the somatic component is, what the material component is. And I'll be liberal and use whatever I want. So just remember, okay, I flip to a spell randomly, a flame arrow, material component, a drop of oil, and a small piece of flint. Well, why do we need that? Why couldn't the material component for flame arrow be a torch that's lit? Why couldn't it be the ash from a torch, or the ash from a building that was burned down? Or how about any number of other things? You know, burning leaves, or magma, or obsidian. There's loads of things you could use as a material component. What about the eye of a fire giant? What about the left testicle of a red dragon? And yes, that might sound funny, but people use testicles of animals even now in real-world magic. So, you could use any of those things in the material component. Allow your players to use different stuff and to try different things. You might say, okay, well, yeah, you need something more like this, but now you try to do that in a pinch. So now what happens? And you can bend and change and make things a little different. If they come up with a baller material component, give them a bonus. If they have an inferior one, give them a penalty. If they have something off the wall, let something slightly different happen. Or something, that doesn't work. Maybe the spell fizzles or even backfires on them. Give them a little flexure. Make the spells magic, not mathematic, not scientific. They're supposed to be pulling on these strange forces the wizard himself doesn't really understand. He kind of understands it. He understands it better than the barbarian, better than the fighter, better even than the bard, but he still don't really understand it. So let the things be flexed. Let them be different. So when I play a wizard in my game, all you're allowed are specialty wizards. There's no wizard class. It's bland, it's boring, it's stale, it's generic. Nobody wants to see Gandalf anymore. Nobody likes Elminster. A mage, a wizard with his pointed hat, nowhere near as cool as a necromancer. Yeah, think those words. Wizard, necromancer. Which one's more awesome? We both know. We know! And now let's walk through it. So, you're going to be an invoker, which I have no idea why they picked the name Evoker for the class. Evoker, the word means someone who, an invocation is a summoning. You're summoning, demons or spirits or what have you. So but whatever, they cast fireballs, you know that. You're a transmuter, who I always call alchemist, you're a diviner, so forth. I have not played an actual wizard since I was 15. So it's been over 20 years since I played an actual wizard. Okay? I don't like them. I think they're bland and stale and generic. I like to put life. I like to put swagger on my characters. And often, when I see people that like wizards, they're lazy. I'm not saying everyone ever played a wizard was lazy, but most lazy players are probably someone here. Oh, no, you're probably a lazy player. I'm just going to be straight with you, as I always am. The wizard class itself, it's a bit generic, isn't it then? But if you wanted to take that, you go, oh, well, I want to cast more than one. Go like AD&D style multi-classing. Say, or you could do like, something like a Mystic Theurist. You could say, okay, you're playing a Necromancer and an Enchanter. You keep getting up to the certain level, and now you can take both. So now you have both access. All right. So this is what the Necromancer, and they're all the same, but I want to use Necromancer because I like Necromancer. Let's face it, Necromancers are sexy. So this sexy beast Necromancer we have out there, he has only access to necromancy spells. Every level is just necromancy. Before anyone goes, there's too few spells. Not too few spells. There are more necromancy spells, more enchantment spells, more invocation spells, more summoning spells, more divination spells in the entire of any of the editions than you will ever need to use for your character. That's right. Go through Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. Go through 3 to 3.5 Warhammer Pathfinder. There are a staggering amount of spells out there. In 3.0, 3.5, you have the OGL spells. Let the floodgates loose. Hell, man, all he can cast is necromancy spells. I know with the books I have, and I'm not someone who buys all the books up for magic. And there are an astronomical amount of them out there. Plus, remember, you can make spells up! People seem to think that only the wise and illuminated game masters, game designers, can create spells. True, some people are far too stupid to be able to do this, but if you're watching my channel, chances are you're not. Chances are you're just as intelligent as needs to be to design not only spells, but interesting, unique, creative, and balanced spells. Don't power game it, just make it cool. And talk to the game master. Go, what does this look? What level does this look like? You understand? Well, I think that spell is probably 4th level. Okay. Don't sit there and kind of connive or whatever. You might counterpoint a little bit and say, well, what if I change this and that? How could we get it down and be comfortable with it being 3rd? Okay, well, let's do this and that. Yeah, all right. Talk with them. And don't try to power game, and don't try to connive them. Game masters have problems with people doing stuff innovative because they've had connivers. If they know you're not conniving them, they will let you do whatever you want. Any game master I play with will let me do whatever I want in the game because they know they can trust me not to destroy their game. Revolutionary concept. Guess who else can get that trust? You! All you have to do is slowly start getting it and earning it and not abusing it when you get it. It's amazing how much people will trust you when you do not abuse the trust they extend you. Try it. It really works well. So, that little rant aside, you're going to have access to any sort of necromancy spell you want as a necromancer. And no other spells. There are no banned schools, no prohibited this or that, no other spells. Except one caveat. Every level, 1 through 9, and if you use 0 level spells in the game, in the game you're using, I would give the specialist access to all of them. You were still training, you were still an acolyte, you still had that flexibility necessary to acquire those, even though were previously outside of your range, and that can add a little more flavor. But first level, second level, ninth level, whatever it is, you can learn one spell that is not necromancy as a necromancer, or whatever. That makes you really have to think very carefully, select very wisely, not just, oh, well, I'm going to grab, that's the first spell I had. You're like, well, it's first level, so did I want magic missile, or did I want sleep? Did I want, the phantasmal force, or whatever the hell it is, You want to get fly or fireball, you want to get a lightning bolt, you want to get an improved visibility, whatever, as these things come along, and it can start sort of developing out a kind of a sub-pattern if you keep spells making sense to the character. Another thing that I always do, spells you just can't learn. In AD&D, you have to roll a percentage based off your intelligence. The higher it is, like, I don't know, I think it'd be like a 16 intelligence, it's like maybe a 70% chance. Don't quote me on the rules, I'm not looking at them right now, but it's something like that. So, 16 intelligence, 70% chance. And if you roll, you got to roll under it. So if you roll, really well, it's straight. But for me, if you rolled a double aught, you can never learn that spell again, ever. You can never make an attempt. It's just information you can't learn. Just like you, in real life, there are things you just couldn't learn. If you sat down and even applied yourself, there's some things that are just far beyond your mindset. And there are also things that are just so uninteresting to you, even inside a discipline of focus you might be interested in. So it sort of reflects that. It's either too hard for you to grasp, or you just don't want to learn it. And if you can if you see a pattern in the spells you don't get, that can be interesting. It makes your character more vulnerable, more balanced. People always complaining, wizards are so powerful. You've just put a big flaw on them right there. I've been doing this for years. No one's ever complained. They might be like, oh, I lost that spell. But it's cool, because then we can add more story. Remember, you want to take away or add things to your game that help you tell the story better. Does I can learn every spell regardless tell a better story? Or does I missed that one spell and that's a great story? It's an interesting story. And remember, we're supplementing it out by letting them have one additional spell. Beyond that, all wands, all rods, all staffs, all potions, and all scrolls. You might be a necromancer. You get that scroll with a lightning bolt on it, and you lightning bolt them right in the mouth. The scroll bursts into flames. The flames catch the air, flitter about, drift, and you smell the smell of burning parchment in your nostrils. And they smell the smell of their companion dying as he is viciously electrocuted through his plate mail. Give them those abilities. Additionally, not only can they cast anything from a scroll or use any of those spells, for a wizard, for a priest necromancy spell, if it's a necromantic spell that a priest could cast, not all priest spells, but a necromantic spell a priest could cast, they can use those, they can't cast those spells, but they could use them as scrolls, they could use them as wands, as staves, as rods, what have you. So that's another little ability to keep them more flexible. I'm not saying you might not want to use this every time. Trot it out there, give it a shake, give it a look. It will provide a better wizard experience. But even if it doesn't for you, it will provide a different look. It will make a more dynamic impression. Consider this an OGL submission, and it's going to work fine. I've done it. I've used it. I've play tested it, and trust me, I know what I'm doing. So when I say those things, you're going to be able to bring it across well. You can scribe scrolls right away at first level. I would allow any of them to have familiars, but not necessarily. You might have a trap ghost that you use to consult as a necromancer, or a little homunculus that you utilize as a transmuter, or some sort of more classic familiar maybe as a conjurer, perhaps a little fire elemental, little tiny little burning thing that maybe it sits inside a torch and talks with you or does whatever as an invoker. You can go over and over again on these things. I mean, I could do multiple videos on familiars. When you get third level, and then again, you can bring this back to AD&D, still works just fine. That's when you can make your potions. Third level is good enough. You can make a potion of any of your spells that you can use. So you can make or any spell that makes sense. I don't know about a potion of chill touch or whatever, but you get what I'm talking about. The way you do your spells, all spell pointed out If you're using 0 level spells, they don't affect this. However, if you run out of spell points, you can't cast any 0 level spells. You're done. Your body is completely drained. Imagine if you've sat there, and I don't know if you've ever had to do this, but I have had to work almost 20 straight hours before on a computer doing things that were not fun. And doing that, your mind is so absurdly drained, you're done. And that's what casting all your magic spells should be like, It's just like you can't get up for it anymore. So those are things to keep it in mind, Bring the flavor in and make the magic feel real. Don't make it look like math. Dungeons & Dragons math in too many editions too often looks mathematical. It looks scientific. It's magic. And it should have a bit of unpredictability to it, a bit of difference, a bit of awe, a bit of mystery, even beyond what the wizard understands. And the spells should every once in a while maybe be able to be used a little bit differently. So we have a little less rhyme and reason. Still inside of this magic is way overstructured. And you can understructure it a little bit without causing any problems. In fact, you're going to give it more flavor that way. And that's, after all, what a wizard should be, an enormous amount of flavor. It's like a ice cream cone with like 4 flavors just stacked up high to the ceiling, Baskin-Robbins style. Just delicious. Think about that right now. So, you have your first level spells. Let's say you have 3 first level spells and 2 second level spells. First level spells, it's 3 times 1. They're just multiplied. So you got 3 spell points. Second level spell, 2 times 2. That's going to be 4 points. And then you just add those together, so that's 7 points. If you add 2 third level spells, that'd be another 6 points. You get it. You guys understand. This is basic mathematics. Put them all together, and you can just cast them off that way. You can't cast spells higher than you would be able to learn. If you were 4th level, you couldn't cast a 3rd level spell, but you'd have those points there. Additionally, I allow people to make a spell that's under a little bit more impressive. Say you had sleep, and sleep could only affect a 4 hit die creature. And at first level, so later in the campaign, it's almost worthless, right? You might say, you get a greater sleep or whatever. But what about that spell you had and used? What if you were to charge it up a little bit more? What if you got a new component, just like you make them use a better component, and give them, something else, like maybe instead of 1 spell point, it costs you 3 spell points now. But now you can affect a 6, 7 hit die creature, something like that. Or if you drop 5 points, maybe you could take that 9 hit die creature out with a sleep spell. It shouldn't keep ramping up the same. It should get less and less and less, cost more and more and more. But the more you're willing to pay, why not? If they're willing to pay, let them play. That's something. It's called promoting the fun. Don't air condition. If your players want to do it and they're willing to pay the price, let them. Why not? It's fun. Particularly in a version like this where you've restricted their spells a little bit. Take the spells and open them up a little bit. You've contracted, now we're expanding. Right? And both ways. By contracting, we're giving the character more to do. Less can be more, sometimes more can be more. So we've contracted only necromancy spells and these other little ones, but we're going to let these spells do a tiny bit more by using different components, by adding more to them. You might get a little more damage, you might get a little more, a better saving throw, or whatever it is. And you may have something dramatically differently happen when you cast that spell. Because you don't know. You're like, I cast Fireball, and we've just fought a fire giant, and I pick his head up, and I throw it at them, and then I'm going to use that as a Fireball component. Oh, the thrown head of a fire giant. I would pop for that. That's going to do something cool in my game. If I'm running Dungeons & Dragons, you're playing, and you pick up a severed fire giant's head that you just cut off with your sword, or the fighter just cut off or whatever, and you pick the hair up and hurl it at an army of orcs. Oh, we're going to have fun with that Fireball. I'll tell you that right now. You should use imagination. I always encourage players to do that. That's why I get furious when I have animate rope on my list, but I can't cast it in that scene where I could have used the reins of a horse to tie people's hands together. Of course I want to do that. Of course. The litmus test, books, movies, TV shows. Would the writer go, well, the fancy magic, you can't do that. And the writer's like, hell yeah, he's going to drop that animated rope, and he's going to tie up, the hands with a coach drive or whatever it is. It's cool, and we get to work that spell in. You don't want to have spells that just sit there and just, you never use them. Because what's fun about that? That isn't fun to me. And if I'm in your game, I'm not going to enjoy that. If I'm not enjoying your game, I'm not going to stay around. I'm not staying around. Who did you just jack by trying to stay on these rules? You jacked yourself. And you jacked me too. So, you don't want to do that. You want to facilitate the fun. You don't want to jack the player. Now, that being said, let's let's just break it down. It's summation here. In first edition they had a number of spells that you could learn. Like you might be able to learn like 9. You could only learn 9 spells per level. That was it. But I mean, it went up with your intelligence. But let's say you want to bring a rule like that to third edition, to Pathfinder. I think that works great. Allowing players to have that chance where they will not only not learn the spell, but they'll never be able to cast it. But at the same time, they might. So that player who always wanted to cast fireballs as an evoker, he doesn't have that fireball spell. But now he hoards fireball scrolls. He gets whatever he can because he wants to still cast it, but he can't. He gets rods of fireballs, and all of a sudden those are effective. Those are a high treasured item to him. And maybe eventually, when the time comes for the delayed black fireball, he picks that joint up. And now, how much does that spell mean to him? He's wanted it so long, and now he's even a more powerful version. So, it's a really, it adds to the game. Just believe me, man. Believe me, if you can do anything as a game master, you will work a better game when you take attack like that. When you make things mean something. Make everything you can mean something, Have them write the spells out. Have them investing. And saying, look, because you're investing, I'm investing in you. And I'm going to give you a little wiggle room from time to time. We're going to do things a little different. And sometimes that'll jack you. And sometimes it's going to give you a big boost. But just run with it, baby, and play to make the game cool. And the game will be cool. And that's when everybody wins. So that's my thought. Drop the Vancian magic from your game. Have the flow of creative mind juices rush over everyone. Make the game more enjoyable. It'll work in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. It'll work at 3.5. It'll work in Pathfinder. Anytime the Vancian magic is there, pull it out by the roots. Throw it into the fire and stand back, because the smell it makes is going to stink just as bad as the impact it has upon the game. Let your main man know in the comments below what you think about Vancian Magic, what you think about my OGL contribution to making specialists that are special. And let's talk about it and keep the conversation moving just the way we always do.